All right, legends, let's finish this pre-round 13 off with our trades video. And by no surprise, I have made 0 trades in my team here in fantasy and sitting with 13 left. And at this point last year, I was actually a couple trades less than that at 11 following round 13. And then I used a bunch in round 14 as well. So I'm actually slightly in a better position. And I wanted to continue with that because I do think that having some trades left over in the back end is going to be really, really important this year more than last, given that there were a few less issues last year during the beginning of the season, especially with a lot of the bigger players. And I feel like this year, if you can have some extra trades, I think probably, yes, the back end of the game, right? But you do get 8 extra and everyone does. I really think the big issue here for most fantasy coaches is going to be round 16 to round 19 there, especially round 19. I do think that round 19, there will be a lot of players available that we can select from, but I do think a lot of fantasy coaches won't have any trades left. So if we can have a bunch during that period or be able to hold on to a couple extra than what other coaches are going to be able to do for the back end, I think it's a mixture between that and that little period and then the back end with holding some trades where you can really make some ranks. And there will be coaches out there that do a little bit better than me on this week, unless guys like Fuller, Karaz, Aitken and Plath really come out and dominate. Brayley as well, if he can get a 50 odd, I think they're kind of the bigger ones, along with like Drinkwater, if we can have a big one out of him. Sort of half my team are that type of game breaker type of players where they can score really well in fantasy. Then I do think that I'll make some ranks, but it won't be the bulk ranks that you would hope for at other times, because you're looking at my side there and Atkinson with Trindle, I think they'll sort of split things. Hopefully for Atkinson's sake, he does kick goals. Unsure if that's going to happen, given Trindle is a good goal kicker as well, but Atkinson did smack him in that game he got to play on his lonesome without Hines there. So that's cool, and that would be my hope there. Iro, everyone owns, so it's not a problem. Sam Hughes, obviously not everyone still currently owns, and he got 22 last week. If he can pick up a 30 odd, then we'll be fine. But we've got a couple of those positions there that aren't incredibly strong. But if I'm looking at other teams there, they might have a Manu or a Teddy. I've got Trey Fuller and Drinkwater, and Karaz there. So really, it evens out in some way, depending obviously on how Teddy and Manu go and how much they dominate the Cowboys. Or can the Cowboys stick in it with Drinky kind of having to do everything, potentially kicking goals as well? That's where this week will be won and lost. So I do think with 13, I'll make ranks no matter what. The question is just how many am I going to make at this stage of the season. But we do have to look forward to round 14, which I think is going to be one of my harder ones. But also the reason why I've held trades in this week is that so if I need to next week, I can make some moves and make some trades. So let's just have a look at where I am at then for next week. But firstly, let's focus actually on potential trade outs for next week while we're there. Let's do that actually in this scene. It'll be easier to do that as well. Alrighty, moving on to round 14. So at current setup, I've got 16 players. That's with Crichton still being there. But let's just play it out. If we don't have any of our Origin guys back up, so let's just say Grant's out, Cotter's out, and Hines is out, that puts me down to 13 players. So if there aren't any injuries this week to any of those other players, then I could, if all of them don't back up, I could 4 trade next week to get 17 on the park. And I think if all of those guys don't back up in Hines, Grant, and also Cotter, and obviously Crichton's out already, I would also have Lussick that's unlikely to play next week as well. So I could even put the green on him, but we'll leave that for now. I do think I'll probably be making 3 trades next week. If a lot of these guys back up, I still will likely be trading Crichton out, whether that's to an Eli Katoa, a David Fafita, something like that. Fuller may be the one to go as well. And we'll have to see what happens with Weeks and how he goes. I think Aitken we're going to be holding longer term. Plath, I think, is going to be really important for the middle, over especially sort of round 15 there, with Hughesy and King out as well in my side there. So that's something to have a little look at as well. I got King in interchange, cool. But yeah, round 15 I got Hughes and King out. So Plath and Cotter, currently I will be needing another mid at this stage during that time. So I do believe Plath is going to be a really important one to hang on to. And yeah, I may need to be grabbing onto like a Fainu, an Alex Twal or something like that next week. that could be something on my radar there. And something I need to look at potentially for a Joey Lussick trade. So I think Lussick's going to be gone next week. Again, shout out to that fella in the comments that said I'll have Lussick all year. It was very funny, but I think he's going to have to go next week. Pika are likely to stay. So let's just say at this stage, Lussick is likely to go. I do think Crichton's a high chance of going. We'll have to see if Atkinson keeps his spot, because if he doesn't, he will also be on that chopping block. And then Fuller might not be able to stay in my side. We'll have to see, because round 15, I'm going to need, a decent, pretty much everyone else in my team to be on the park and doing good things. So that's something I need to monitor. And you would expect, obviously, all my Origin guys to be there playing in round 15, unless they all pick up an injury. But if they do pick up an injury, we are likely to be trading them at this stage. So again, then you go into my little Word doc with all of my squad there. And that's something you have to note on a week-to-week basis. So round 14 numbers for each section. Hooker, I'm fine. Mids, I'm fine as well for round 14. I didn't put round 15 in there, but that's something you do have to notice and monitor as well, because I have two Dogs players in my mids at that point, so it only leaves me with Plath and Cotter. But I did say that I want to be having 5 mids in my team, and that's where trading Lussick as my third hooker would then go to a cheaper mid in Samuel Fainu in there, and he can help me with my 3 mids for round 15. He'd also help in the mid or the edge situation in 16, but also have Fafita or Katoa to help with that. So yeah, that's the situation in that scenario. All the other round 14s I'm set for, right? So just be getting that 17 on the park by that stage. And again, this also means that I need all of these players backing up as well. So in the half situation, in round 14, Weeks would be out. I would be able to have Hines and Galvin, and that's if Hines backs up. If Hines doesn't back up, then I do need to muck around with some certain things. And Garrick is an interesting one that I want to look to grab. I might have to grab him in round 14 just because of the situation. If Atkinson's still in the team and Hines doesn't play, well, obviously Atkinson would be in the team then. Atkinson would have to come up into halves and cover that. And then I bring in Garrick for my round 14 wing fullback. So these are all the things you do need to have a little think about, at least a round in advance, maybe even 2, to give you the best chance of doing really well. But something I'm looking for round 16, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with Hooker at this stage. I'll have Brayley and Grant out in that one, knowing that I'll be trading Lussick at this point. Round 16, I need 1 edge, so Fafita or Eli Katoa are going to cover that, and then 2 wing fullbacks. And by that point, I'll have Garrick, most likely, and then a Manu or a Teddy, depending on how things work out following Origin and this week, and injuries and concussions and all the rest, right? So that's what you do have to look at in your side. And I think that's really important to do so in your teams there, as I said. Cool. So that's where I'm at. For this one, let me know where you are at. If you think you've got a slightly stronger side, let me know. If you think you're slightly weaker or if you don't have a full 13, also let me know there in that one. I'll move to the overall side in Supercoach as well. While we're here, we'll get both heads as well following that. But in my team, no trades this week as well. So it's a no trade week in my overall sides, which means I've set up really well, and that's good stuff. So if you're looking at my team right now, you've got Brayley, May, Curran as my starters, and then we've got Aiken, Kaipis, Paul, and Morgan Smithies in the 2RF, which is not bad. Sammy Walker is currently looking to be my captain, and I'm going to be vice-captaining Jermaine Asako at this stage, which is the game before, the Sam Walker game, but I do think with Walker and the Roosters, I think they're going to do really well against the Cows this week. So I think he's a solid captain. He could flop, but that's where, Asako, if we get anything around that 84 that he got last week, we'll be taking that for sure as that free looper this week, which is the good thing is Supercoach. You get that free loop with, so many people on the bye. Everyone plays for your team this week, and it doesn't matter if they're a low score or not. So that's that. Walker, there we got Dylan Brown, along with Isaac Tungo, Blaze Talangi. Not super excited about Blaze and Iro. Fuller in the starts, and then we've got Drinkwater, Strange, and also Sam Hughes. So we're playing 16 this week with Blaze coming off the bench. We'll have to find out how Coach is going to be using him. But I do believe 16 here in Supercoach is going to do the trick, and I should be able to make some ranks. My main issue here is not having Joey Manu or having a Dom Young or a James Tedesco. So if they go nuts and have a nice fiasco, going crazy with big 100+ scores, I will lose out a little bit this week. I would need guys like Fuller. I would need Sam Walker to go really big, and guys like Jermaine Asako, I would need to go 100+ to drown that out a little bit and take his captaincy score of 100+, along with Walker and the like there. I need an Aitken try, these types of things, and Terrell May to go really big as well. So that's that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Just don't have those big dogs, but I feel like next week it's going to be important for me, given even like guys like Blaze Talangi might not be viable next week as a player. We're not sure what's going to happen with Nicho Hynes. We don't have Crichton. We've got Val Holmes trying to back up. A bunch of different questions to ask and answer there going into next week, and likely going to have to make a couple of trades next week. So we're setting ourselves up now to not have to be short, because I think at this stage, if everyone backs up, I'm at 17. But if a couple don't back up and we don't really want to play Blaze, we'll need to use that couple of trades next week. So I didn't want to grab another round 14 buy player, which it would be with Tedesco, Manu, and the like there. So very, very simple with Supercoach. It's the top 13 scorers, guys, if you weren't sure. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, if someone goes 10, it's not the end of the world if you have 14, 15, or 16 players. And I also didn't want to add anyone else into this list, given I already have 16 available. And yeah, didn't want to overload this week, just so I'm poor next week and lose ranks in that front, and points there. So yeah, a couple of trades will be used next week just to shore things up and probably move on from Blaze Talangi, given he's a more expensive number there at 538k. And yeah, that's how we're going to roll with it there. We'll move on now to the fantasy head-to-head side along with the Supercoach head-to-head team there. Okay, so moving along to the head-to-head side, we've ended up with, the way things have, the cookies crumbled, we end up with 15 players available, and Blaze Talangi is one of them. And yeah, unlikely we're going to be taking his score, but that means we can loop. So we get to loop in the center position, which, not too exciting, obviously, but Iro is most likely they're going to be the best scorer, I think, in that first game of the week. And then against the Eels there. And then Ethan, if we don't like Iro's score in that interchange one, guys, we'll just move Strange into the center position and move Garrick out, which will be the play on that one there, very simply. And I think Jack Cole, if he plays, looks like he's fine. Panthers have come out and said that he is fine. So we'll look to play him this week over Strange as well in that half position. And Blaze Talangi, very, very unlikely to be a good scorer. If he's on that bench come final team list, I'll just leave Blaze where he is. It's funny, I've got so many centres at the moment after getting Joey Manu last week. And the reason I got him is now that I'm going to captain him. So super excited for that one in the head-to-head squad, and kind of offsets my team not owning him. So that'd be cool. I've got Dylan Brown in that first game. He's going to be the vice captain. He was going to be the captain, but I do think that Manu can go nuts against the Cows there. Their defense is really, really poor. So whether he's going to get line breaks, try assists, or tries, I think he'll be able to do good things. A little bit different, the squad we're rolling out, as I've been saying there. Most of the leagues I'm playing actually have a game this week. There's only a few that don't. So I did need to have a fairly strong side. I do need to start getting some wins in the head-to-head side. So one trade for me this week, and we are in a fairly solid position coming into next week as well, with only the one Dolphin player. Yes, a couple of Raiders there, and then we've got Manu in this squad, in Crichton there, we haven't traded yet. They're the players, a couple of players there I'll be looking to move on from next week. But we did make the one trade. It was Silva Havili up to Max King. I had a fair bit of cash remaining, and I've decided to go Silva to Max King in this scenario. There's a little bit of a thought in my head that I might hold on to Crichton, just because he's a final team gun, and we know that in a head-to-head scenario, he's the type of player that is the best in his position, along with Dave Fafita, and might be worth a hold, whereas someone like Cotter might not be. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit of a think this evening. I'm not too excited with Havili at this point and where he's been at. He could just be held, and I could just go Crichton over to Max King at this point and just do that same trade, but just trade Crichton first and leave a bit of cash in the bank next week to do some upgrades with Blaze Talangi. And it's something I might still do. But at this point, it's either Silva out, who, it doesn't look like he's going to get the minutes at the moment either, or Crichton there, and we can make some moves from that point. But yeah, do have a pretty strong team this week. Should make some overall ranks and should be able to win majority of my head-to-heads, especially if Manu does fairly solidly. So that is the head-to-head team for fantasy. Pretty simple at that front. And then head-to-head for the Supercoach side, we haven't made one trade there. It leaves us 296 in the bank, but just go on Taylor May, who's stood down now for David Armstrong there. So banked about 50k and should be banking a pretty good score there as well. Pretty excited with the prospects of Liam Henry if he actually does stay on the edge. But either way, I think he'll play good minutes. So Reed, Terrell, Hughes, and Henry in that front. Got Adam Fenor-Blake and Coruscant to return next week, which is good. Kai Pearce-Paul, Plath, Smithies and Sean Lane. I think Lane will be on the way out next week. And yeah, we'll use that bit of extra cash in the bank to do something with that. And we'll finally be able to improve this 2RF a little bit. But we'll get through this week with that scenario and go on from there. So that's 8 available. And then we got Johnson already ready to go for next week along with AFB. So I'm super excited about that for sure, especially once we make some upgrades in that 2RF, because the rest of the positions are looking really, really strong, to be honest with you. With him coming back, Johnson, we should be able to win some head-to-heads following off from round 13, that's for sure. Dylan Brown will be the next player on the list. Obviously, Galvin sitting there as well. Dom Young is in there with Blaze Talangi, with Asako, with Strange, along with Iro and Armstrong. So pretty excited about that. And then we've got Drinkwater at the bottom there with Nick Meaney still sitting in that position. So at this stage, I have to muck around with a vice and a captaincy in this scenario. I do think there's a high chance that it will be likely to be Dylan Brown. Otherwise, I do think David Armstrong's a pretty cheeky little option there for sure, considering, or we just go Asako as well, like I did in my overall side. So that's a decent shout just for now, but I think Armstrong's a bit of a fun one as well against the Doggies. But yeah, surely Dolphins there should be able to put on a little bit of a show there against the Canberra Raiders. It'll be a little fun game, but yeah, either way, I think that's set up there with Dom Young. We're going to double down with him as the captain like we did last week, and hopefully he can come out and do pretty well against a very depleted Cowboy side, which I think he will. And it'd be silly not to double down on that again, given he's my only rooster there. There's a little bit of thought in me of wanting to go for Tedesco or something like that, but only one of my 2 important head-to-heads played this week. So I didn't want to go overload in this one to then miss out in round 14. So I do think I'll be able to get some good wins from next week. Let me know where you're at in Supercoach and or fantasy there. They're my trades for the week. That's my last video until we start reviewing games from tomorrow. So good luck with your setup for round 13. Obviously, yeah, if you've got sort of 15, 16 players available, 13 in fantasy, obviously, then across 5 games, you're going to get plenty of action, plenty of plays in each game. It's going to be plenty of fun. So good luck for this week. We'll see you in the next one.